The metallic screech of twisted steel pierced the humid afternoon air as Jordan Williams dropped to his knees beside the overturned sedan. Steam hissed from the crumpled engine block. Shattered glass sparkled like deadly diamonds across the hot asphalt of Interstate 85. The woman trapped inside was conscious, but bleeding from a deep gash across her forehead. Her breathing shallow and rapid. "Ma'am, I'm Jordan. I'm a paramedic. Can you tell me your name?" His voice carried the practiced calm of 15 years responding to emergencies. His dark hands moved with precision, checking her pulse, assessing the damage. The woman's eyes fluttered open, unfocused. "Sarah. Sarah Henderson," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the distant rumble of traffic being rerouted around the accident scene. Jordan's partner, Dr. Michael Harrison, jogged over with the trauma kit, his silver hair catching the afternoon sunlight. "Vitals?" Michael asked, already preparing the IV line. "Pulse 120. Respiration shallow. Possible internal bleeding. We need to stabilize her spine before extraction." Jordan's hands never stopped moving, applying pressure to the head wound while maintaining cervical spine immobilization. Years of training had made these movements automatic, a careful dance between speed and caution that could mean the difference between life and permanent disability. The acrid smell of spilled gasoline mixed with the metallic tang of blood and the rubbery odor of burnt tire treads. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed their urgent song. Growing closer by the second, Jordan positioned the cervical collar with practiced ease, his movements precise despite the urgency of the situation. "Sarah, we're going to get you out of here, but I need you to stay very still. Don't try to move your head or neck." "Okay." Jordan's voice was gentle, but firm. He'd learned long ago that a calm paramedic could be as important as any medication in keeping patients stable. That's when the shadow fell across them. Heavy boots crunched on broken glass, and Jordan looked up to see a police officer approaching, his hand resting on his service weapon. Officer Patricia Kowalski's pale face was flushed red with anger. Her blonde hair pulled back in a severe ponytail that seemed to stretch her features into a permanent scowl. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Kowalski's voice cut through the scene like a blade. "This is a crime scene. You can't just move evidence around." Jordan didn't look up from his patient. "Officer, I'm a paramedic. This woman needs immediate medical attention. We're following standard emergency protocols." "I don't care what you think you're doing. This is my scene now, and I'm telling you to step back." Kowalski moved closer, her shadow blocking the light Jordan needed to properly assess Sarah's injuries. Michael straightened up, his gray eyes meeting the officer's glare. "Officer, we're licensed emergency medical personnel. State law requires that we prioritize life-saving measures over crime scene preservation." "Don't quote law to me, old man, and you." She pointed directly at Jordan. "I'm ordering you to step away from that vehicle immediately." Jordan felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his focus on Sarah, whose breathing was becoming more labored. "Officer, this woman is in critical condition. Every second counts. Please, let us do our job." The sound that came next was sharp and violent, the crack of Kowalski's palm striking against Jordan's shoulder, knocking him off balance. "When I give you an order, boy, you follow it." The word hung in the air like poison gas. Jordan felt the familiar burn of rage in his chest, the same feeling he'd experienced countless times throughout his career when his professionalism was questioned, when his competence was doubted, when his very humanity was reduced to the color of his skin. But Sarah's life hung in the balance, and he couldn't afford to let anger cloud his judgment. "Officer Kowalski," Michael's voice was ice cold, "you just assaulted a licensed paramedic who is providing emergency medical care. I strongly advise you to step back and allow us to complete our assessment." "Who the hell are you to tell me what to do?" Kowalski's face was now deep red, spittle flying from her lips. "This punk is interfering with a police investigation, and I won't tolerate it." She reached down and grabbed Jordan's badge, the metal pin tearing through his uniform shirt as she ripped it away. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice and interfering with a police officer." Jordan's hands never left Sarah, even as Kowalski grabbed his wrist. "Officer, I understand you have a job to do, but this woman could die if we don't stabilize her immediately. Please, I'm begging you. Let us finish." Begging, that's more like it. Kowalski's smile was cruel, predatory. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to disrespect law enforcement." Michael stepped forward, placing himself between Kowalski and Jordan. "Officer, I'm Dr. Michael Harrison. I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. This patient has potentially life-threatening injuries, and federal and state emergency medical services laws supersede local law enforcement jurisdiction in life-threatening situations. I don't care if you're the Surgeon General himself. Nobody disrespects me on my scene." Kowalski shoved Michael hard in the chest, sending the older man stumbling backward. That's when the crowd began to gather. Other emergency responders who had arrived on scene, firefighters, and even passing motorists had pulled over to watch the escalating confrontation. Cell phones appeared, cameras rolling, capturing every word and gesture. "Holy shit," someone whispered from the crowd. "That's Dr. Harrison?" "Who?" "Dr. Michael Harrison. He's the state's chief medical director. He reports directly to the governor." The whispers spread through the gathering crowd like wildfire. Jordan caught fragments of the conversation swirling around them, but his attention remained focused on Sarah, whose pulse was becoming thready and weak. "Michael, her blood pressure is dropping fast. We need to move now." Kowalski seemed oblivious to the murmurs from the crowd, her rage building to a crescendo. "I don't care who you think you are. You're both going to jail for obstruction." She reached for her handcuffs, but Michael's voice cut through the chaos. "Officer Kowalski, I am Dr. Michael Harrison, Chief Medical Director for the state of Georgia. I report directly to Governor Morrison, and I am ordering you to stand down immediately and allow these paramedics to provide emergency medical care." The authority in Michael's voice was undeniable, carrying the weight of decades of medical leadership and political influence. But Kowalski was too far gone, too committed to her course of action to back down now. "I don't care if you're the president. You're interfering with my arrest?" She lunged forward, grabbing Michael's arm and twisting it behind his back with brutal force. That's when the cameras really started rolling. The sound of multiple phone cameras clicking and video recording filled the air. Someone in the crowd was already live streaming on social media, and the viewer count was climbing rapidly. "This is Dr. Harrison," a firefighter called out. "What the hell are you doing?" "Kowalski." Fire. Captain Rodriguez pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of disbelief and growing anger. "Officer, release Dr. Harrison immediately. He's the top medical authority in this state." "I don't care who he is. Nobody tells me how to do my job." But there was something different in Kowalski's voice now, a hint of uncertainty, as if the reality of the situation was finally beginning to penetrate her rage. Jordan could feel Sarah's pulse growing weaker under his fingertips. "Guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but this woman is going into shock. We need to get her to a trauma center now, or we're going to lose her." Michael, despite having his arm twisted behind his back, never lost his composure. "Officer Kowalski, let me make this crystal clear. You are currently assaulting the Chief Medical Director of the state of Georgia while preventing licensed emergency medical personnel from providing life-saving care to a critically injured patient. This is being recorded by dozens of witnesses, and I guarantee you that Governor Morrison will be made aware of this situation within the hour. Something in Michael's voice, the calm certainty of absolute authority, finally seemed to penetrate Kowalski's fury. She loosened her grip slightly, but didn't release him. "You're lying. Prove it." Michael reached slowly into his jacket pocket with his free hand and withdrew a badge case. The gold shield inside bore the seal of the State of Georgia Medical Board, along with his official identification as Chief Medical Director. "Captain Rodriguez, would you please verify my credentials?" Rodriguez took the badge case, examined it carefully, then looked up at the crowd. "This is legitimate. Officer Kowalski, you're assaulting a senior state official and interfering with emergency medical care. Release him now." The crowd was growing larger, and the whispers were becoming louder. Social media notifications were pinging constantly as the live stream gained traction. The hashtags Jocker Dr. Harrison and Jesus Police Abuse were already trending locally. Kowalski's face went through a series of expressions, from rage to confusion to something that might have been fear. But her pride wouldn't let her back down completely. "I don't care who you are. You disrespected my authority, and there are consequences for that." "My authority." Michael's voice carried a note of steel that Jordan had never heard before. "Officer, my authority comes from the people of Georgia, through their elected governor. Your authority comes from the same source. And right now, you are abusing that authority to prevent the saving of a human life." Jordan felt Sarah's pulse skip, then race irregularly. "She's going into cardiac arrhythmia. If we don't get her stabilized and transported in the next 5 minutes, she's going to die. Officer, please. I'm not asking you to admit you're wrong. I'm asking you to let me save this woman's life." The raw desperation in Jordan's voice seemed to cut through the chaos. For a moment, the only sounds were the distant traffic, the hiss of steam from the wrecked car, and Sarah's labored breathing. Then, Michael made a decision that would change everything. "Captain Rodriguez, I'm invoking my emergency authority as Chief Medical Director. I want you to immediately contact State Patrol and have them dispatch a unit to this location. I'm also calling Governor Morrison's office directly." He pulled out his phone with his free hand and dialed a number from memory. "This is Dr. Michael Harrison. I need to speak with Governor Morrison immediately." "Yes. It's an emergency involving police interference with emergency medical care and the assault of a state official." The effect on Kowalski was immediate and dramatic. The color drained from her face as the reality of her situation finally hit home. She had just assaulted the Chief Medical Director of the state while he was supervising emergency medical care. And it was all being recorded. "You can't. You don't have the authority to," she stammered. But her voice lacked conviction. "Officer," Michael's voice was deadly calm, "I have more authority in emergency medical situations than you can possibly imagine. And right now, you are in violation of federal emergency medical services laws, state statutes regarding interference with medical care, and you have assaulted a state official in the performance of his duties." The crowd was pressing closer now, cell phones held high, recording every word. Someone had called a local news station, and a reporter was already on the way. The live stream had gone viral, with thousands of viewers watching the confrontation unfold in real time. Jordan continued working on Sarah, but he could hear every word of the escalating confrontation behind him. Part of him felt vindicated, knowing that Kowalski was finally facing consequences for her actions. But mostly, he just wanted to save Sarah's life and get through this day without anyone dying. "Dr. Harrison," Jordan called out. "I've got her stabilized for now. but we need to move her to the ambulance immediately. Her blood pressure is still dropping." "Do it," Michael ordered, still maintaining his calm authority despite being restrained. "Captain Rodriguez, I need your firefighters to assist with patient transport." Rodriguez nodded immediately. "You heard him. Let's get this woman loaded and transported now." Kowalski finally released Michael's arm, but she wasn't giving up. "This isn't over. I'm calling my supervisor." "Please do," Michael replied, straightening his shirt and picking up his medical bag. "I'm sure Chief Martinez will be very interested to hear about this incident." As the firefighters helped Jordan carefully extract Sarah from the vehicle and load her onto a spine board, Michael continued his phone conversation with the governor's office. His voice carried across the scene, clear and authoritative. "Yes, Governor. I understand your concern. No, this is not an isolated incident. We've had reports of police interference with emergency medical care across 3 counties this month alone." Kowalski's face went from pale to green as she realized the scope of what was happening. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about to become a statewide issue, with the governor's direct involvement. The ambulance arrived just as Jordan and the firefighters finished securing Sarah to the backboard. Her vital signs had stabilized somewhat, but she was still critical. Jordan climbed into the back of the ambulance, continuing to monitor her condition as they prepared for transport. "Jordan," Michael called out as he approached the ambulance. "Excellent work under impossible circumstances. I'll be riding with you to the hospital." "Dr. Harrison, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. This woman's life is the priority, and I want to ensure she receives the best possible care. Everything else can wait." As Michael climbed into the ambulance, Kowalski made one last desperate attempt to assert her authority. "You can't leave, you're both under arrest." Captain Rodriguez stepped between Kowalski and the ambulance. "Officer, I strongly advise you to stand down. State Patrol is en route, and I guarantee they're going to want to speak with you about your conduct here today." The ambulance doors slammed shut, and Jordan felt a wave of relief wash over him as they pulled away from the scene. But the relief was short-lived. Sarah's blood pressure was dropping again, and her breathing was becoming more labored. "How far to Memorial Hospital?" Michael asked the driver. 8 minutes with this traffic." "Make it 5. Michael's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed in life-or-death situations. Jordan established a second IV line, while Michael contacted the trauma team at Memorial Hospital directly. "This is Dr. Harrison. We're inbound with a critical MVA patient. Female. Approximately 35. Possible internal bleeding. Signs of shock. ETA 5 minutes. "Dr. Harrison." The voice on the radio sounded surprised. "Sir, we'll have Trauma Bay 1 ready and waiting." As they raced through the city streets, sirens wailing, Michael turned to Jordan. "I want you to know that what happened back there was completely unacceptable. Officer Kowalski will face serious consequences for her actions." Jordan adjusted Sarah's oxygen mask, checking her pulse again. "Dr. Harrison, I appreciate what you did back there, but honestly, I just want to focus on saving lives. That's what we're here for." That's exactly the attitude that makes you an excellent paramedic. But Jordan, what happened today isn't just about one racist cop. It's about a pattern of behavior that puts patients at risk and undermines the entire emergency medical system. The ambulance screeched to a halt outside Memorial Hospital, and the trauma team was waiting exactly as promised. As they rushed Sarah into the trauma bay, Jordan couldn't help but notice the difference in how they were treated. Everyone knew Dr. Harrison, and everyone treated both him and Jordan with the utmost respect and professionalism. 20 minutes later, Sarah was stable and headed to surgery. The head trauma was less severe than initially feared, and the internal bleeding had been controlled. She was going to survive. Thanks to Jordan's quick action and professional competence at the accident scene. As they stood outside the trauma bay, still catching their breath, Michael's phone rang. "Dr. Harrison." "Yes, Governor." "Yes, I understand." "Absolutely. I'll be there." He hung up and turned to Jordan. "The governor wants to meet with us tomorrow morning. Officer Kowalski has been suspended pending investigation, and there's going to be a comprehensive review of police protocols regarding emergency medical scenes." Jordan felt a mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. "What does that mean for us?" "It means change is coming. Real change. The governor is furious about what happened today, especially after seeing the video footage. This is going to trigger a complete overhaul of police training regarding emergency medical services." As they walked out of the hospital together, Jordan noticed that his phone was buzzing constantly with messages and notifications. The video of their confrontation with Kowalski had gone viral, with millions of views and thousands of comments supporting his professionalism under pressure. "Jordan," Michael said as they reached the parking lot, "I want you to know that your conduct today was exemplary. You remained focused on patient care despite facing inexcusable harassment and assault. That's the mark of a true professional." "I just did my job, Dr. Harrison." "No, you did much more than that. You reminded everyone watching that our primary duty is to preserve life, regardless of the obstacles we face. That's a lesson that extends far beyond emergency medicine." 3 days later, Jordan was back on duty when his radio crackled to life. "Unit 47, respond to I-85 northbound. Mile marker 84. MVA with injuries." As they raced toward the scene, Jordan felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with emergency response. But this time was different. This time, when they arrived at the accident scene, the police officers on site immediately approached with respect and professionalism. "Paramedics, thank God you're here. We've got 2 vehicles involved, 3 patients. We've already secured the scene and established a perimeter for medical access." The lead officer, Sergeant Williams, was someone Jordan recognized from previous calls. But his demeanor was completely different now, professional and deferential to medical authority. "What's the status on the patients?" Jordan asked as he grabbed his medical kit. "1 critical, 2 stable. We've cleared traffic in both directions to give you room to work. Is there anything else you need from us?" As Jordan worked on the critical patient, a young man with chest trauma, he noticed something he'd never experienced before in 15 years as a paramedic. The police officers were actively assisting with medical care, holding IV bags, helping to stabilize patients, and coordinating with traffic control to ensure the smoothest possible transport to the hospital. "New training program," Sergeant Williams explained when Jordan commented on the improved cooperation. "After what happened to you and Dr. Harrison last week, the whole department went through mandatory emergency medical response training. We learned about patient care protocols, legal requirements, and proper interagency cooperation." Jordan felt a surge of satisfaction that surprised him. The changes were real, immediate, and potentially life-saving. How has the department responded to the new training? Mixed reactions, honestly. But most of us realize that we're all on the same team. We're all trying to serve and protect the public, just in different ways. Your professionalism under pressure that day really opened a lot of eyes. As they loaded the last patient into the ambulance, Jordan's radio crackled again. "Unit 47, please respond to City Hall for a special ceremony after you clear the hospital." An hour later, Jordan found himself standing in the city council chambers, still in his paramedic uniform. facing a room full of local officials, media representatives, and community members. Mayor Jennifer Thompson stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to recognize exceptional service and to announce important changes to our emergency response protocols. Last week, Paramedic Jordan Williams demonstrated the highest levels of professionalism and dedication to patient care under extremely difficult circumstances. The room erupted in applause. Jordan felt uncomfortable with the attention, but he also felt a sense of pride in knowing that his actions had led to meaningful change. Mr. Williams, the mayor continued, your unwavering commitment to patient care, even when facing harassment and assault, exemplifies the best of emergency medical services. Today, we're presenting you with the city's Medal of Valor for Public Service. As the mayor placed the medal around his neck, Jordan looked out at the audience and saw Dr. Harrison in the front row, applauding with obvious pride. But more importantly, he saw Sarah Henderson, the woman whose life he had saved that day, sitting in the second row with her family. After the ceremony, Sarah approached him with tears in her eyes. Mr. Williams, I wanted to thank you personally. The doctors told me that if you hadn't acted so quickly and professionally, I might not have survived. You saved my life while facing abuse that no one should have to endure. Sarah, I'm just glad you're okay. That's what matters most. But it's not just that. Your actions that day sparked changes that are going to help countless other people. The new police training protocols, the improved interagency cooperation, the increased awareness of medical emergency laws. All of that came from your refusal to compromise patient care, no matter what obstacles you faced. Dr. Harrison joined them, carrying a thick folder of documents. Jordan, I wanted to update you on the broader implications of what happened that day. Officer Kowalski has been terminated and is facing criminal charges for assault and interference with emergency medical care. But more importantly, the governor has signed an executive order mandating statewide emergency medical response training for all law enforcement officers. That's incredible, Dr. Harrison. But what does it mean for day-to-day operations? It means that what you experienced will never happen again to any paramedic in this state. It means that patient care will always take priority over jurisdictional disputes. And it means that emergency responders like you will receive the respect and support you deserve while doing your jobs. As the evening wound down, Jordan found himself standing outside City Hall with Dr. Harrison, watching the sun set over their city. The events of the past week seemed surreal, like something that had happened to someone else. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you tell me who you were when we first started working together, I mean? The chief medical director of the state doesn't usually ride ambulances. Michael smiled, a warm expression that reached his eyes. Because I wanted to see how emergency medical services really operates at the ground level. I wanted to understand the challenges that paramedics like you face every day. And honestly, I learned more working with you than I ever could from reports and statistics. What did you learn? I learned that the best paramedics, like you, never compromise patient care, no matter what obstacles they face. I learned that professionalism and competence don't depend on titles or credentials, but on character and dedication. And I learned that sometimes the most important changes happen when good people refuse to accept unacceptable behavior. Jordan felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not just for the recognition he had received, but for the knowledge that his actions had created lasting positive change. So, what happens now? Now we go back to work. We continue saving lives, training the next generation of emergency responders, and building bridges between law enforcement and medical personnel. The foundation has been laid for systemic change. But it will take ongoing effort from people like you to make sure those changes stick. As they parted ways in the parking lot, Jordan's radio crackled one more time. Unit 47, respond to Riverside Drive. Apartment complex. Medical emergency. Difficulty breathing. Jordan smiled as he climbed into the ambulance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new emergencies, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, for the first time in his 15-year career, he felt truly confident that when he arrived on scene, he would be treated with the respect and professionalism that all emergency responders deserved. The story of that day on Interstate 85 would be told and retold throughout the emergency medical community, not just as an example of one paramedic's courage under pressure, but as proof that standing up for what's right, even in the face of abuse and intimidation, can create changes that benefit everyone. Jordan Williams had saved more than just Sarah Henderson's life that day. He had saved the integrity of emergency medical services in his state and ensured that future generations of paramedics would be able to focus on what mattered most, preserving life and serving their communities with dignity and respect. The medal around his neck felt heavy as he drove toward the next emergency. But it was the weight of responsibility, not burden. It was a reminder that every call, every patient, every interaction was an opportunity to uphold the highest standards of professional medical care, regardless of the circumstances. And in a world where those standards were sometimes challenged by prejudice and abuse of authority, that reminder was more valuable than any award or recognition. As the ambulance disappeared into the evening traffic, its lights flashing and siren wailing, Jordan carried with him the knowledge that his profession, his community, and his state were all better because he had refused to compromise his principles when it mattered most. The changes that followed would echo through time, protecting countless future patients and ensuring that the sacred trust between emergency responders and the communities they serve would never again be compromised by hatred or abuse of power.